The night air split with a scream that died before it could echo. Cassandra Sunbreaker's white hair whipped around her face like silver flames as her mother's hands released her, and gravity claimed what blood should have protected. The ravine opened beneath her like a mouth of shadow and stone, swallowing the girl in the red dress who had trusted too much, loved too deeply, and never saw the betrayal gleaming in her own mother's eyes. Above, Lady Morgana Sunbreaker stood at the cliff's edge, her chest heaving not with grief, but with triumph. The full moon hung fat and luminous in the sky, painting everything in shades of bone and ash. Her daughter's body had vanished into the darkness below, swallowed by the jagged rocks and twisted roots that lined the ravine's throat. Morgana smoothed her gown, arranged her features into practiced despair, and turned back toward the castle whose throne she now believed would be hers. The Silver Moon Castle rose in the distance, its towers piercing the night like accusations. Inside its walls, Dante Redclaw, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, stood at his chamber window, one hand pressed against the cold glass. His reflection stared back at him, all sharp angles and contained violence. Black hair fell past his shoulders, and his beard framed a jaw that had broken lesser men with a single blow. His body was a weapon, honed by centuries of war and transformation, muscles shifting beneath his skin like tectonic plates. But in this moment, standing alone in the darkness, something twisted in his chest. Something wrong. Something broken. The bond he had felt growing between himself and Cassandra over the past months, that inexplicable pull that had made him declare his intention to take her as his queen, suddenly felt frayed, distant, as if someone had cut a string he hadn't known was tethering his soul to something precious. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, agitated and snarling. Dante's fingers curled into a fist against the window, and the glass cracked beneath the pressure. Red eyes flashed in his reflection, there and gone, the beast inside him responding to an instinct older than reason. Something had happened. Something to her. The door to his chambers burst open without warning. Lady Morgana swept in, her face a mask of anguish that didn't quite reach her eyes. She wore a gown of deep emerald, cut low and elegant, her dark hair arranged in careful disarray, as if she had been running her hands through it in distress. Dante turned slowly, his massive frame blocking out the moonlight behind him. He did not speak. He simply watched her with eyes that had seen through 1,000 lies. Morgana pressed a hand to her chest, her voice breaking with theatrical precision. "Your Majesty, I come with devastating news. My daughter, Cassandra, she has fled. Run away with a common soldier, abandoning her duty, her family, her promise to you." The words fell into the space between them like stones into still water. Dante remained utterly motionless, his face carved from granite, revealing nothing. But inside, his wolf roared. The beast knew. It always knew. "Tell me," Dante said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. "How does a girl flee from a castle guarded by my best warriors without a single soul seeing her leave?" Morgana's smile faltered for just a heartbeat. She must have planned it. Been planning it for weeks. "You know how young girls are, Your Majesty. Foolish. Romantic. She probably believed she was in love. Before we continue with the story, tell us where you're watching from and how old you are. I hope you enjoy the story." Dante moved then, crossing the space between them in 3 strides that made Morgana instinctively step back. He towered over her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. Not anger, something worse. Certainty. "You reek of lies," he said softly. "And something else. Fear, desperation, the scent of someone who has just committed an act they cannot take back." Morgana's face paled, but she forced a laugh. "Your Majesty, I am simply distraught. My only daughter is not in this castle," Dante interrupted. "But I will find her. And when I do, Lady Morgana, I will know the truth of what happened tonight." Pray that your story holds water better than your composure." He turned away from her, dismissing her with a gesture that was both casual and absolute. Morgana opened her mouth to protest, to perhaps try another tactic, but the look he threw over his shoulder silenced her completely. It was the look of an alpha, of a king, of a predator who had just identified prey. "Leave my sight." Morgana fled, her green gown a whisper of silk and lies. Alone once more, Dante closed his eyes and reached inward, past the man, past the king, to the wolf that lived in his marrow. The transformation began slowly, deliberately. His bones sang with the change, restructuring, reshaping. His senses expanded, sharpening until he could hear the heartbeat of every creature for miles, could smell the truth in the air like copper and salt. And there, beneath the thousand scents of the castle, the forest, the night, he found her. Cassandra. Her scent was a thread of winter sunlight and wild roses, and it led away from the castle, toward the western ravines where the mountains dropped away into darkness. The wolf exploded from Dante's skin in a rush of power and purpose. Black fur rippled across massive shoulders, claws carved furrows in the stone floor, and golden eyes blazed with singular focus. He crashed through the window without hesitation, glass and wood shattering, his body a dark arrow against the moonlit sky. He ran. The forest blurred around him, trees becoming shadows, the ground a ribbon beneath his paws. His wolf had never been more focused, more driven. The bond, that frayed and wounded thing in his chest, was pulling him forward like a compass pointing to true north. She was alive. She had to be alive. The alternative was unthinkable, a howl of grief that would shatter mountains. The ravine appeared suddenly, a wound in the earth, and Dante's wolf skidded to a halt at its edge. The scent was stronger here, Cassandra's fear and pain perfuming the air like a funeral flower. And beneath it, something else. Another woman, Morgana. A growl built in Dante's chest, low and murderous. He descended into the ravine, his powerful body navigating the treacherous terrain with preternatural grace. Rocks crumbled beneath his weight, roots gave way, but he pressed on, following the scent, following the bond, following the call of something his soul recognized even if his mind had not yet named it. And then he saw her. Cassandra lay crumpled among the rocks like a broken dove, her red dress torn and dark with blood, her white hair spread around her head like a halo of frost. She was not moving. In the moonlight filtering through the trees above, she looked like something carved from marble, a statue of tragedy and beauty. Dante shifted back to human form in a heartbeat, his hands already reaching for her, gentle despite their capacity for destruction. He gathered her into his arms with a tenderness that would have shocked anyone who had only seen him in battle. His fingers found her throat, searching for a pulse. There, faint, fluttering, like a captured bird. "Cassandra," he breathed, his voice cracking on her name. Her eyes flickered beneath closed lids, but did not open. Blood traced a path from her temple down her cheek, and her breathing was shallow, labored. He could see broken bones beneath her skin, damage that would have killed a human instantly. But Cassandra was no ordinary human. She was his mate, whether she knew it or not, and the wolf blood that ran through his veins called to something dormant in hers. "I have you," Dante whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "I will not let you go. Do you hear me, little one? I will not let you go." He stood, cradling her against his chest, and began the climb out of the ravine. Every step was calculated, careful. She felt impossibly light in his arms, this girl who had somehow become the center of his world without him realizing it. The girl whose smile had started to thaw something frozen in him decades ago. The girl whose mother had just tried to murder her. Rage, cold and absolute, settled into Dante's bones. But he pushed it down. buried it beneath more immediate concerns. Morgana would answer for what she had done. But first, Cassandra needed to survive. The castle's healing chambers were prepared within minutes of Dante's return. He carried Cassandra through halls that fell silent at his passing, servants and guards alike pressing themselves against walls, their eyes wide at the sight of their king, half-naked and wild-eyed, carrying a broken girl who smelled of blood and earth. The healers worked through the night, their magic and medicine knitting bones, closing wounds, fighting for a life that hung by gossamer threads. Dante remained at Cassandra's side through all of it, his hand wrapped around hers, as if his presence alone could anchor her to this world. As dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Cassandra's eyes finally opened. But they were unfocused, confused, empty of recognition. When the head healer examined her, the diagnosis was what Dante had feared. Memory loss, Your Majesty. The trauma to her head was severe. She may recover, given time. But for now, she remembers nothing. Not her name, not her past, not what happened to her. Dante stared down at Cassandra, at this girl who looked at him with the eyes of a stranger, and something inside him made a decision. He would give her time, he would give her space, but he would not give her up. "You are safe now," he told her, his voice gentler than anyone had ever heard it. "No one will hurt you again. I swear it." Cassandra blinked up at him, confusion written across her delicate features. Her hand tightened almost imperceptibly in his, as if some part of her, some deep instinct, recognized safety in his presence even if her mind did not. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice raw from screaming and disuse. "I am Dante," he said simply, "and you are under my protection." In the weeks that followed, the castle adapted to its unusual new resident. Cassandra had been given chambers near Dante's own, spacious rooms filled with soft fabrics and gentle light. She moved through them like a ghost, trying to piece together an identity from nothing, haunted by dreams she couldn't quite remember, and a sense of loss she couldn't name. Dante visited her daily, bringing her small gifts, flowers from the mountain slopes, books from his library, sweets from the kitchen. He spoke to her of inconsequential things, the weather, the history of the castle, stories of the forest. He never pushed, never demanded that she remember. He simply made himself a constant, gentle presence in her fractured world. And Cassandra, without knowing why, found herself drawn to him. This huge, fierce man who moved with lethal grace yet touched her as if she were made of spun glass. His voice, when he spoke to her, lost the edge of command it carried elsewhere. His eyes, which blazed with fury when dealing with his court, softened to warm amber when they found her. She did not know that he was protecting her from more than just physical threats, did not know that he had positioned guards at her door, not just to keep danger out, but to keep Lady Morgana away. The woman had tried repeatedly to visit Cassandra, claiming maternal concern, but Dante had barred her entry with absolute authority. "You will stay away from her," he had told Morgana coldly. "Until I know the full truth of what happened, you will not breathe the same air as her." Morgana had protested, had tried every tool in her arsenal, from tears to seduction to political maneuvering. She appeared at court functions in gowns designed to attract attention, positioned herself in Dante's path, spoke sweetly and submissively whenever he was near. She played the part of the grieving mother who only wanted to see her daughter recovered, the loyal subject who offered herself as consolation to a disappointed king. But Dante was unmoved. When she approached him, he looked through her as if she were air. When she tried to touch him, to lay a hand on his arm or shoulder, his wolf snarled so loudly inside him that his eyes flashed gold, and she stumbled back in instinctive fear. She was nothing to him. Less than nothing. She was the woman who had hurt his mate, and only his iron control kept him from dragging her to the dungeons immediately. He needed proof. He needed Cassandra's memories to return. One evening, nearly a month after the incident, Dante found Cassandra on the balcony of her chambers, staring out at the mountains. The setting sun caught in her white hair, turning it to liquid gold, and her red dress, identical to the one she had worn that night but whole and clean, fluttered in the breeze. "You stand here often," Dante observed, stepping out beside her. His presence was enormous, blocking out half the sky, yet somehow comforting rather than threatening. Cassandra nodded slowly. "I feel like I should remember something. When I look at those mountains, at that direction, something in my chest hurts. Like there is a memory trying to break through." Dante's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "Do not force it. Memories will return when they are ready, or they will not. Either way, you are safe here." She turned to look up at him, and for the first time, asked the question she had been afraid to voice. "Why do you care so much? About me?" "I am no one. I remember nothing. I have no family that claims me, no past to recommend me. Yet you treat me as if I am precious." Dante was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the distant peaks. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made Cassandra shiver. "You are not no one. You are Cassandra Sunbreaker, and whether you remember it or not, you were to be my queen, my mate, the other half of my soul." Cassandra's breath caught. "Your mate?" "In my world," Dante said, finally turning his gaze to her, "there is such a thing as a destined bond. Two souls that recognize each other across time and fate. I felt it the first time I saw you, walking in the gardens with flowers in your hair. I knew you before I knew you, and whatever happened to take your memories, whatever tried to separate us, it cannot break what was forged in something deeper than memory." Tears gathered in Cassandra's eyes, though she could not say why. "I do not remember you. I do not remember any bond. How can you be so certain?" "Because," Dante said, reaching out slowly, telegraphing the movement so she could pull away if she wished. "When I found you broken in that ravine, dying alone in the dark, I felt my heart stop. In 300 years of life, through countless battles and endless nights, I have never felt fear like I felt in that moment. The thought of a world without you in it was unbearable. That is how I know." His hand cupped her cheek, large and warm, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. Cassandra leaned into the touch without thinking, her body responding to something her mind could not access. "Tell me about her," Cassandra whispered. "About who I was." Dante smiled then, small and sad and achingly tender. "You were fierce, kinder than anyone in this court deserved. You spent your days in the gardens and the library, reading everything you could find about healing and plants. You befriended every servant in the castle, remembered all their names, asked about their families. You looked at me without fear, which so few can do, and you laughed at my attempts at poetry, which were admittedly terrible." Cassandra felt herself smiling despite the grief of not remembering. "I laughed at you?" "Mercilessly," Dante confirmed, his own smile growing. "You told me I should stick to ruling kingdoms and leave verse to those with actual talent. I believe your exact words were that I made the ancient poets weep from beyond the grave." "That sounds bold," Cassandra said. "Was I always so brave?" "With me, yes," Dante said. "You were never afraid of me, never intimidated. You saw past the king, past the alpha, to whatever man remains underneath all that weight. You made me feel human again." The moment hung between them, fragile and precious, and Cassandra felt something shift in her chest. Not quite memory, but a feeling, an echo of something that had been. "I wish I could remember," she said softly. "You will," Dante promised, "and until then, we will build new memories. If you will allow it." Cassandra nodded, not trusting her voice, and they stood together on the balcony as the stars emerged overhead, one by one, like promises written in light. The next weeks unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Dante courted Cassandra with a patience that surprised everyone who knew him. This man, who commanded armies with a word and crushed rebellions with his bare hands, became someone else entirely in her presence. Their mornings began in the gardens, where early mist clung to the rose bushes, and the air smelled of dew and earth. Dante would find her there, often already awake before dawn, drawn to the flowers by something she couldn't name. He would approach quietly, his footsteps deliberate so as not to startle her, and stand beside her in companionable silence until she acknowledged his presence with a shy smile. "Look," he would say, guiding her attention to a particular bloom. "This one was your favorite. You called it moonlight given form. You said it reminded you that even in darkness, beauty finds a way to exist." Cassandra would touch the pale petals with tentative fingers, trying to feel the memory in their silk texture, trying to remember the girl who had loved them. "Tell me more," she would whisper. "Tell me who I was." And Dante would. He painted pictures with his words, stories of a girl who laughed too loudly and read too late into the night, who healed injured birds and argued philosophy with scholars twice her age, who danced in summer rain and made wishes on falling stars. With each story, Cassandra felt herself coming back together, piece by piece, like a mosaic being reconstructed. The afternoons they spent in the library, a vast room with windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, letting in waterfalls of golden light. The smell of old paper and leather and dust motes dancing in sunbeams became Cassandra's favorite scent, though she didn't know why until Dante told her she had spent half her life in this room before the incident. "Read to me," she asked him one day, settling into a chair by the window. Dante selected a volume of ancient legends, stories of wolves and magic and bonds that transcended death. His voice, reading aloud, was like honey and smoke, deep and mesmerizing. Cassandra closed her eyes and let the words wash over her. But more than the stories, she absorbed the sound of him, the way his breath would catch slightly on certain words, the soft rumble of amusement when a passage struck him as funny, the gentleness that infused every syllable when he looked up to gauge her reaction. It was in these quiet moments that Cassandra fell in love with him, not with drama or grand gestures, but with the simple intimacy of shared time, with the way he never rushed her, never pushed for more than she was ready to give, with the way he made her feel seen, truly seen, in a way she suspected few people ever experienced. One evening, he taught her to ride. The stables smelled of hay and horse and worn leather, familiar smells that tugged at something in Cassandra's fractured memory. Dante introduced her to a mare the color of fresh cream, with intelligent dark eyes and a gentle temperament. "This is Moon Whisper," Dante said, stroking the horse's nose. "She was yours. She has been waiting for you to come back to her." Cassandra approached slowly, extending her hand. Moon Whisper nickered softly, pressing her muzzle into Cassandra's palm, and suddenly tears were streaming down her face. She didn't know why she was crying, only that something in her recognized this creature, loved this creature, missed this creature. "I remember her," Cassandra breathed. "I remember brushing her mane. I remember riding through the forest with the wind in my hair. I remember feeling free." Dante's arms came around her from behind, steadying her, supporting her through the wave of emotion. "You will feel that freedom again," he promised. "I will give you back every piece of yourself that was stolen." He helped her into the saddle, his hands firm on her waist, his voice a steady stream of instruction and encouragement. They rode through the castle grounds, Dante on a massive black stallion beside her, his posture relaxed but alert, ready to catch her if she faltered. But Cassandra didn't falter. Her body remembered even if her mind did not, and soon they were cantering through the meadows, the wind whipping her white hair behind her, her laughter ringing out clear and unrestrained. Dante watched her with something like awe, seeing the real Cassandra emerge more fully with each passing day, the trauma slowly releasing its grip. When they finally stopped to rest beside a stream, both slightly breathless, Cassandra turned to him with flushed cheeks and bright eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "For this, for all of it, for not giving up on someone who didn't even remember who she was." Dante reached out, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You were worth waiting for," he said. "Worth fighting for. Worth finding. And you always will be." Something passed between them in that moment, electric and profound. Cassandra felt it in her chest, that pull toward him, that sense of recognition that went beyond memory or logic. Her body leaned toward his of its own accord, drawn by gravity or magnetism or fate. Dante's eyes darkened, gold bleeding into the amber, his wolf rising close to the surface. His thumb traced her bottom lip, a question and a promise. "May I?" he asked, his voice rough with restrained desire. "Yes," Cassandra breathed, and he kissed her. It was gentle at first, achingly tender, as if he was afraid she might break. But when Cassandra's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, the kiss deepened. It tasted like coming home, like a memory and a promise intertwined. Heat bloomed through her, followed by something else. Something wild and powerful that she didn't understand, but welcomed anyway. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "That feeling," he said softly. "The wildness you just felt. That is your wolf, awakening to mine. The bond is calling to you, even through the veil of lost memory." "My wolf," Cassandra repeated, tasting the words. "I have a wolf?" "You are my mate," Dante explained. "That means you carry the potential within you, dormant until the bond awakens it fully. When we complete our mating, when we bind ourselves entirely, you will be able to shift as I do. You will be truly one of us." The revelation should have been shocking, but somehow it felt right. It explained the dreams she had been having, of running on 4 legs through moonlit forests, of howling at stars, of a freedom that transcended the merely physical. "I want that," Cassandra said. "I want all of it. I want you." Dante's arms tightened around her, his face buried in her hair. "You have me," he murmured. "You have always had me. From the moment I first saw you, my heart has belonged to no one else." They stayed by the stream until the sun began to set, talking quietly, stealing kisses, learning the contours of this new thing growing between them. And when they finally rowed back to the castle, their hands occasionally brushing as they rowed side by side, both felt the foundations of something unbreakable being laid. And Cassandra, slowly, carefully, fell in love with him. Not with a memory of who he had been to her, but with who he was now, with the way he made her feel safe, the way he listened when she spoke as if her words were sacred texts, the way his entire being softened when he looked at her, as if she was the only thing in all his kingdoms that mattered. She saw, too, the duality of him, saw how he was with others, cold and commanding, a force of nature that bent the world to his will. Watched him in council meetings, his voice like thunder, his judgment absolute. Saw lesser men flinch when he entered a room, saw how his mere presence could end arguments and quell dissent. She witnessed it firsthand one afternoon when she wandered past the throne room during a council session. The doors were slightly ajar, and curiosity drew her closer. She peered inside to see Dante seated on his throne, a massive chair of black iron and silver that seemed more weapon than furniture. His posture was relaxed, almost lazy, but there was a coiled danger in every line of his body. A nobleman was arguing about trade routes, his voice growing increasingly strident, verging on disrespectful. Dante simply looked at him, saying nothing, and the man's words died in his throat. The silence that followed was absolute, oppressive, heavy with unspoken threat. When Dante finally spoke, his voice was soft, almost conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Lord Brennan, I'm going to give you a choice. You may leave this room now with your lands and titles intact, or you may continue speaking to your king as if he is a servant to be ordered about, and leave this room with nothing but the clothes on your back and the memory of what you once possessed. Choose quickly. My patience is not infinite." The nobleman fled, nearly tripping over his own feet in his haste. The other lord sat in rigid silence, and Cassandra saw then the vast gulf between who Dante was with the world and who he was with her. Later, when he found her in the gardens, all that cold authority melted away. He approached her with almost boyish uncertainty, as if unsure of his welcome, this man who made hardened warriors tremble. "I am sorry if you witnessed that," he said quietly. "That side of me, the king, the alpha. It is not who I wish to be with you." Cassandra took his hand, threading her fingers through his much larger ones. "I do not need you to hide any part of yourself from me. You are both the king and the man, both the alpha and my love. I see all of you, Dante. And I am not afraid." His eyes closed briefly, as if her words had struck something deep. "How did I find you?" he murmured. "In all the world, across all the years. How did I find you?" "Maybe you were always meant to," Cassandra suggested, rising on her toes to press a soft kiss to his jaw. "Maybe we were always meant to find each other. But with her, always with her, he was different. Gentle, patient. As if she was the only creature in existence who deserved his tenderness. The servants noticed. They whispered about it in corridors and kitchens, marveling at the transformation. The king who had ruled with an iron fist for centuries, who showed mercy rarely and emotion never, had become someone new in the presence of the white-haired girl. They saw him smile more in a single day with her than in decades before. Saw him laugh, actually laugh at something she said. Saw him watch her across crowded rooms with eyes that held entire universes of devotion. Cook, an ancient woman who had served 3 generations of Alpha Kings, summed it up best to a group of kitchen maids one evening. He was a sword all his life, sharp and hard and made for war. But she is the sheath that lets him rest. And a sword without a sheath is just a weapon. With her, he gets to be a man again. One afternoon, as they walked through the castle gardens, Cassandra spotted a woman watching them from a distance. She was beautiful, elegant, with dark hair and a gown of emerald silk. But there was something in her eyes, something cold and calculating, that made Cassandra's skin prickle with instinctive unease. "Who is that woman?" Cassandra asked, moving unconsciously closer to Dante's side. Dante followed her gaze, and his entire demeanor changed. His body went rigid, a low growl rumbling in his chest that Cassandra felt more than heard. "That is Lady Morgana Sunbreaker. She claims to be your mother." "Claims?" Cassandra looked up at him sharply. "I have found no evidence that she has any maternal feeling for you whatsoever," Dante said, his voice hard as iron. "In fact, all evidence points to quite the opposite. Stay away from her, Cassandra. Do not be alone with her. Do not trust her. But why would she—" "Because she wanted what was meant to be yours," Dante interrupted gently. "My throne. My crown. She thought if you were gone, she could take your place. But she underestimated 2 things: the strength of the bond between us and her own daughter's will to survive." Cassandra looked back at Morgana, at this woman who was supposedly her mother, and felt nothing. No recognition, no warmth, only a creeping sense of danger, like standing too close to a cliff's edge. "I believe you," she said quietly. "I do not know why, but I believe you." Dante's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining, and that simple touch felt like coming home to a place she had never been, but always known. As spring turned to summer, Cassandra's memories began to return in fragments. A flash of a garden she had walked through, the feel of a book's pages beneath her fingers, the sound of laughter, her own, echoing in empty halls. And with each memory came more, pieces of a puzzle slowly forming a picture. The first significant memory returned during a thunderstorm. Cassandra was alone in her chambers, watching lightning split the sky, when suddenly she wasn't alone anymore. She was younger, perhaps 10 years old, hiding under her bed during a storm while her mother paced the room above. "You are such a disappointment," her mother's voice said, sharp and cold as winter steel. "Afraid of a little thunder. What kind of queen could you possibly make? You have no strength, no spine. You are nothing but a burden I am forced to carry." Cassandra gasped, the memory hitting her like a physical blow. She remembered that feeling, that small girl's helpless shame, the desperate wish to be braver, stronger, better. Remembered years of such moments, of casual cruelties disguised as lessons, of love withheld as punishment for not being enough. She remembered her mother, not as the distant stranger she seemed now, but as she had been. Remembered the subtle cruelties, the constant comparisons, the way Morgana had always looked at her with something between resentment and calculation. Remembered feeling like a pawn in a game she did not understand. Another memory came in the library. Cassandra was reading a book on healing herbs when the scent of the old pages triggered something. Suddenly she was back in this same library, but years younger, showing Dante a rare flower she had preserved between the pages of a book. "Look," she had said, her voice full of excitement. "A moonflower. They only bloom one night a year, and I managed to preserve it perfectly. Is it not beautiful?" Dante, in the memory, had looked at the flower politely, but his eyes had kept returning to her face. "It is beautiful," he had agreed, "but not as beautiful as the woman showing it to me." Cassandra had blushed then, ducking her head, secretly pleased. "You are incorrigible," she had said. "Cannot you take anything seriously?" "I am being serious," Dante had replied, his voice dropping low. "I am being more serious than I have ever been in my long life. You make me want things I thought I had buried centuries ago. Hope. Joy. A future that is more than just duty and war." In the present, Cassandra pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the echo of that younger self's racing heart. She had loved him even then. The memory was clear now, the feeling unmistakable. She had looked at this fierce, terrifying king and seen someone worth loving. More memories flooded back over the following days. The first time Dante had kissed her, in a moonlit garden with jasmine perfuming the air, his hands shaking slightly as if she were something precious he was afraid to break. The night he had asked her to be his queen, his mate, going down on one knee before her like she was the one who ruled him. Her joy, pure and incandescent, at saying yes. The way she had believed, naively perhaps, that her mother would be happy for her. She remembered confronting her mother with the news, expecting congratulations, finding only cold fury barely masked. "The king has chosen you," Morgana had said, her smile sharp enough to cut. "How fortunate. Tell me, daughter, what do you think will happen when he realizes what you truly are? A weak, simple girl with no ambition and no real power. He will tire of you. He will set you aside. And when he does, someone stronger will need to be ready to take your place." Those words had hurt then, had planted seeds of doubt Cassandra had tried hard to ignore. But now, with distance and recovered understanding, she saw them for what they were. Poison. Manipulation. The words of a woman who had never loved her daughter but only seen her as an obstacle. But she also remembered Dante. Remembered the first time she had seen him, tall and fierce, and impossibly beautiful in his wildness. Remembered the way her heart had stumbled in her chest. Remembered conversations in moonlit gardens, his awkward attempts at romance that had charmed her precisely because they were so genuine. Remembered falling in love with a man who was a king, but who knelt before her as if she was the one who ruled him. She remembered a night when she had found him in his study, hunched over maps and reports, the weight of his kingdom bowing his shoulders. She had approached quietly, placing her hands on those shoulders, feeling the tension coiled there like springs. "Come to bed," she had said softly. "The kingdom will still be here tomorrow." Dante had captured one of her hands, pressing a kiss to her palm. "I am responsible for thousands of lives," he had said. "Every decision I make could mean the difference between prosperity and suffering, life and death. How can I rest when so many depend on me?" Cassandra had moved to stand before him, taking his face in her hands. "You are one man, Dante. One man with a huge heart, an even huger sense of duty. But you cannot pour from an empty cup. Let me help you. Let me share the burden. Is that not what mates do? Carry each other when the load becomes too heavy?" He had looked at her with such love then, such gratitude, such relief. "How did I exist before you?" he had whispered. "How did I survive all those years without you to remind me that I am more than just a king? That I am also a man who needs rest and love, and someone to tell him when he is being foolish?" "You are never foolish," Cassandra had said, kissing his forehead. "You are noble and dedicated and far too hard on yourself. But you are also mine, and I will not let you work yourself into exhaustion. Come with me." He had followed her then, this man who commanded armies, allowing himself to be led to bed by a slip of a girl with white hair and a gentle voice. And she had held him as he finally slept, his head on her chest, listening to her heartbeat, finding peace in her presence. In the present moment, remembering all of this, Cassandra felt tears streaming down her face. These were not sad tears, though sadness was mixed in them. They were tears of recognition, of coming home to herself, of understanding finally who she had been and who she had become, and how those two selves were now merging into something whole. The memories came faster now, each one leading to another, a cascade of recovered self. And with them came the memory of that final night. The moon, her mother's smile, the edge of the ravine, the moment of betrayal so complete it had shattered her world. Cassandra woke screaming from that memory, her hands grasping at empty air as if still falling. The room was dark, except for moonlight streaming through the windows, casting everything in silver and shadow. Her heart hammered against her ribs, her breath coming in gasps, and for a moment she was back in the ravine, broken and dying and utterly alone. But then hands were on her shoulders, warm and steady, and a voice was cutting through the panic, low and soothing and achingly familiar. "Cassandra. Cassandra. You are safe. You are here with me. You are safe." Dante was there in seconds, having heard her distress from his own chambers. He gathered her against his chest, his arms a fortress, his voice a litany of reassurance. He had thrown on only a pair of loose sleeping pants, his chest bare, and Cassandra pressed her face against his skin, inhaling his scent, grounding herself in the reality of him. "I remember," Cassandra sobbed into his shoulder. "I remember everything. She tried to kill me. My own mother tried to kill me." "I know," Dante said, his hand stroking her hair, his other arm banded around her waist as if he could hold her together through the force of his will alone. "I know, my love. I am so sorry. So sorry I was not there to protect you." His voice broke on the last words, and Cassandra felt wetness on her hair. He was crying. This fierce, unbreakable man was crying for her, for what she had endured, for his perceived failure to save her. "You found me." Cassandra pulled back to look at him, her hands framing his face, wiping away tears that glinted like diamonds in the moonlight. "You came for me when I was broken and lost. You brought me back. You did save me, Dante. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." Dante's eyes blazed with emotion, gold bleeding into the amber, his wolf rising close to the surface. His hands came up to cover hers, holding them against his face as if memorizing the feeling. "When I felt you were in danger, when that bond between us suddenly felt wounded, I thought my heart would stop. I have lived 300 years, Cassandra. I have fought wars and survived betrayals and lost people I loved. But nothing has ever terrified me like the thought of losing you." Cassandra felt the bond he spoke of now, not just as a concept, but as a tangible thing. It was a golden thread, connecting her heart to his, thrumming with energy and emotion. She could feel his wolf pacing just beneath his skin, agitated and protective and utterly devoted to her. And beneath that, she felt her own wolf stirring, responding to his call, ready to emerge fully when the time was right. "I felt it too," she whispered. "When I was in the ravine, broken and dying, I felt you, like a lifeline pulling me back from the dark. I did not understand it then, but I know now. You were calling me home." And I answered. Dante's forehead dropped to rest against hers, his breath mingling with hers, his body a shield between her and all the horrors of the world. "I will always come for you. Always. There is no force in this world or any other that could keep me from you. You are mine, Cassandra. Mine to protect, mine to cherish, mine to love for as long as the stars burn in the sky. And you are mine," Cassandra said fiercely, "not because you own me, but because you gave yourself to me freely, because you see me, truly see me, and love what you see, because you make me feel strong and precious and capable of anything." They kissed then, for the first time since her memories had returned, and it was different now. Not the tentative exploration of new love, but the desperate reunion of two souls that had been separated and found each other again. Cassandra poured everything into that kiss, all her love and fear and relief and gratitude. Dante met her with equal intensity, one hand tangled in her white hair, the other spread across her back, holding her so close there was no space between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. The bond between them pulsed like a living thing, visible for a moment as golden light that wrapped around them both. Cassandra could feel his emotions as clearly as her own now. His love, fierce and unconditional. His relief at having her back. His rage at what had been done to her, carefully contained so as not to frighten her. His determination to make sure she was never hurt again. And beneath all of that, something else. A question. A hope. A future waiting to be claimed. "I want to marry you," he said, the words escaping as if they had been held back too long. "I want you to be my queen, my mate, my everything. But only if it is what you want. Only if you choose this, choose me, with full knowledge of who you are and who I am. I will not trap you with obligation or duty. If you want to leave, to build a life somewhere else, somewhere safe and quiet, where mothers do not betray their daughters and ravines do not wait to swallow up innocence, I will help you do that. I will give you anything you ask for, even if what you ask for is freedom from me." Cassandra's heart clenched at the pain in his voice, at the genuine offer he was making even though it was clearly tearing him apart. She understood then how much he loved her. Enough to let her go if that was what she needed. Enough to put her happiness above his own. Enough to break his own heart if it meant keeping hers whole. But that was not what she wanted. That had never been what she wanted. "I choose you," she said, her voice clear and strong despite the tears still wet on her cheeks. "I choose this. I choose us. I do not want safety if it means being without you. I do not want quiet if it means losing your voice. I do not want freedom if it means freedom from your love. You are my home, Dante. You are my safety, You are my choice, freely made, with full knowledge and absolute certainty." Dante's eyes closed, his entire body shuddering with relief and emotion. The bond between them flared brighter, responding to her declaration, solidifying into something unbreakable. His wolf howled inside him, triumphant and joyful, and Cassandra felt her own wolf answer, a cry of recognition and belonging. When Dante opened his eyes again, they were pure gold, his wolf looking at her with adoration. "Then let us make it official," he said, his voice deeper, rougher, touched by the beast inside. "Let us bind ourselves before the pack, before the kingdom, before the moon itself, and let us deal with those who sought to tear us apart. Your mother will answer for what she has done. I promise you that." Cassandra nodded, feeling a dark satisfaction at the thought. Not revenge, precisely, but justice. Morgana had made her choice when she pushed her daughter from that cliff. Now she would face the consequences. The wedding was set for the next full moon, a date heavy with symbolism and power. In the weeks leading up to it, the entire kingdom buzzed with preparation. Silver Moon Castle was transformed, decorated with flowers and lights, banners bearing the crest of the Alpha King and the newly designed crest of his queen-to-be. The castle came alive with activity. Seamstresses worked day and night on Cassandra's gown, creating something that would be worthy of an Alpha Queen. The head seamstress, a tiny woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, brought Cassandra sketches and fabric samples, listening carefully to what she wanted. "I want it to feel like moonlight," Cassandra had said, running her fingers over white silk that seemed to glow from within. "Something that speaks of transformation and new beginnings. Something that honors both who I was and who I am becoming." The woman had smiled knowingly and set to work, creating a masterpiece. Meanwhile, the kitchens prepared feasts that would feed thousands. Cook directed her staff with military precision, creating dishes from across the territories, making sure every tradition was honored, every palate accommodated. She personally supervised the wedding cake, a towering creation of white and silver that would take a dozen people to carry into the hall. The gardens were manicured to perfection, every path swept, every flower bed tended, until the entire castle grounds looked like something from a fairy tale. Gardeners worked from dawn to dusk, planting night-blooming flowers that would open under the light of the full moon, filling the air with perfume. Musicians arrived from distant lands, the best performers in every instrument, ready to provide music for the celebration. Poets composed verses in honor of the union. Artists created paintings and tapestries depicting the love story of the Alpha King and his rescued queen. But beneath the celebration, tension simmered. Lady Morgana had not been formally charged with any crime, Dante waiting for the perfect moment to spring his trap. He allowed her to remain at court, to see the preparations, to watch her daughter prepare to claim the throne she had tried to steal. It was a calculated cruelty, letting her stew in her failure, letting her desperation grow. And desperate Morgana was. She watched from windows and shadowed corners as Dante and Cassandra walked the grounds together, his hand always at the small of her back, his eyes never leaving her for long. Watched them laugh together over private jokes, saw them steal kisses in quiet corridors, witnessed the easy intimacy of two people utterly in love. It was everything Morgana had wanted, everything she had believed should be hers. She was the one who understood power, who knew how to wield it, who would have made a formidable queen. Instead, her insipid daughter, that weakling girl who cried over injured birds and wasted time on books, would wear the crown. Morgana, for her part, grew increasingly frantic. She tried once more to seduce Dante, appearing in his path in gowns that left little to imagination, her words honeyed and full of implication. One evening she found him alone in the war room, studying maps and military reports. She had dressed carefully for this encounter, her gown of deep crimson cut low enough to be scandalous, her hair arranged in artful disarray. She approached with swaying hips, her lips curved in what she imagined was a seductive smile. Your Majesty, she purred, allowing the door to close behind her with a soft click. You work too hard. Surely you could use some company, some distraction. Dante did not even look up from his maps. Get out. Morgana faltered but pressed on, moving closer until she was nearly touching him. You do not mean that. I know you must be lonely, stuck with a girl who does not even remember her own name for half your courtship. But I am here, Dante. I am ready to give you everything she cannot. Experience. Passion. A woman, not a child. Dante's hand stilled on the map. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his head to look at her. What he saw in his eyes made Morgana take an involuntary step back. There was no desire there, no interest, nothing but cold, absolute disdain. You disgust me, he said simply, each word enunciated with crystal clarity. Whatever beauty you possess is rotted from within. You are a cancer I have allowed to fester too long in my court. You tried to murder your own daughter for the sake of a crown you would never have worn. You pushed her from a cliff and left her to die alone in the dark. And now you stand before me, reeking of desperation and cheap perfume, and think I might actually want you? Morgana's face went white, then red with humiliation and rage. You cannot prove anything, she spat, her mask of seduction falling away to reveal the venom beneath. Cassandra remembers nothing. She remembers everything, Dante interrupted, his voice dropping to a lethal purr. Every detail of that night, every word you said to her before you pushed her, every moment of her fall, every second of lying broken and alone, thinking she would die there because her own mother tried to kill her. She remembers it all, Morgana. And so do I. He moved then, faster than Morgana's eyes could track. And suddenly he was looming over her, his presence overwhelming, terrifying. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising close to the surface, and for the first time, Morgana truly understood what she had tried to make her enemy. Leave my sight, Dante said softly, and pray that when your judgment comes, I am feeling merciful. Because right now, the only thing keeping you alive is my promise to Cassandra that she would be the one to face you, that she would be the one to speak her truth before I cast you into the darkness you tried to cast her into. Now go, before my control slips, and I forget that I am a king who believes in justice, rather than a beast who believes in vengeance. Morgana fled, her silk gown whispering against the stone floors, her heart hammering with fear and rage in equal measure. Desperate now, Morgana began to plot. If she could not have the throne, then neither would Cassandra. She would burn it all down first. She gathered allies among the discontented nobles, those who resented Dante's absolute rule, those who could be bought with promises of power. Lord Blackthorn, who had lost lands in a dispute 3 years prior. Lady Silvermane, whose son had been executed for treason. Lord Ashwood, whose ambitions had always exceeded his station. She met with them in secret, in abandoned wings of the castle, in the forest under cover of darkness. She whispered of revolution, of bringing down the tyrant king, of installing a new order where they would all have power. Think of it, she hissed to her gathered conspirators. We will strike during the wedding, when the castle is full of visitors from distant lands, when security is divided between celebration and protection. We will have hired swords, mercenaries who care nothing for Dante's reputation. We will flood the castle with them, overwhelming his guards. In the chaos, Dante will fall, and his precious white-haired bride will fall with him. But what then? Lord Ashwood asked nervously. Who will rule? We will establish a council, Morgana said smoothly. No more kings. No more absolute power in the hands of one wolf. We will rule together, making decisions for the good of all, not the whim of one. It was a lie, of course. Morgana had no intention of sharing power. Once Dante and Cassandra were dead, she would make sure her co-conspirators met unfortunate accidents as well. The throne would be hers, finally, as it should have been from the start. She stockpiled weapons, hidden in rooms and passages only she knew about. She enlisted mercenaries, paying them with jewels and promises of more. She prepared for her final gambit, the desperate move that would either win her everything or cost her her life. But Dante's spies were everywhere, and he knew of every whispered plan, every secret meeting. His most trusted operatives, wolves who could blend into any crowd, who could hear a conversation from 100 feet away, who were loyal unto death, reported everything back to him. He sat in his private study one evening, Cassandra curled beside him, and listened as his spymaster recounted Morgana's plans in detail. "She means to strike during the ceremony itself," the spymaster said grimly. "She has gathered over 100 mercenaries, hidden in the forest and in abandoned buildings in the town. They will attack once the vows begin, using the crowd as cover." Dante's jaw tightened, but his hand continued stroking Cassandra's hair gently. "Then we will be ready," he said. "Double the guards. Position our best warriors in the hall, disguised as guests. Set traps for the mercenaries, and make sure Morgana herself is watched every second. I want to know if she so much as breathes differently." "And what of Lady Morgana?" the spymaster asked. "Do we arrest her now?" "No," Dante said, his voice cold as winter. "Let her make her move. Let her reveal herself completely before all witnesses. And then, we end this, once and for all." He allowed it to continue, gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment to end it all. That moment came on the wedding day itself. The ceremony was to take place in the great hall, beneath a ceiling enchanted to show the full moon above, though it was only afternoon. The hall was packed with nobility from across the territories, alphas from every pack, dignitaries from distant lands. They had come to witness history, the mating of the Alpha King to his chosen queen. Cassandra stood in her chambers, dressed in a gown of white silk that seemed to glow from within, embroidered with silver thread in patterns of wolves and roses. Her white hair was crowned with moonflowers, and around her throat she wore a collar of silver and diamonds, the mark of an alpha's mate. She looked like a creature from legend, ethereal and powerful, and achingly beautiful. Dante, waiting at the altar, felt his breath stop when she entered the hall. She walked alone, as was tradition, her head high, her eyes finding his across the distance. The bond between them thrummed and sang, a harmony only they could hear. With each step she took toward him, his wolf settled, content for the first time in his long life. This was right. This was meant to be. This was home. But as Cassandra reached the halfway point down the aisle, a commotion erupted at the back of the hall. Lady Morgana pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with rage and desperation. She had abandoned all pretense now, all carefully crafted masks. "Stop!" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the vast space. "This marriage cannot happen! I will not allow it!" The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Guards moved to intercept Morgana, but Dante raised a hand, halting them. He wanted this, wanted her to reveal herself completely before all witnesses. "And why, Lady Morgana, would you presume to stop the wedding of your king and your own daughter?" Dante's voice carried effortlessly, cold and commanding. "Because she is not worthy." Morgana spat. "She is weak, broken. I should be your queen, not this pathetic child." Cassandra remained motionless in the aisle, her face calm despite the venom being hurled at her. She had known this confrontation was coming, had prepared for it, and now, with her memories fully restored, she was ready. "Not worthy," Cassandra said, her voice clear and strong. "Is that why you threw me from a ravine, Mother? Because I was not worthy? Or was it because you knew I was everything you could never be?" The hall went deadly silent. Morgana's face paled, then flushed with fury. "You remember nothing. You are mad, addled from your fall." "I remember everything," Cassandra said, walking forward now, each step measured and deliberate. I remember you taking me to the ravine under pretense of showing me the view. I remember you smiling at me, telling me how proud you were. I remember your hands on my back. I remember falling. I remember the rocks. I remember dying alone in the dark, cast away by the woman who was supposed to love me above all others. Morgana's composure shattered completely. You were in my way, she screamed. Everything was supposed to be mine. I gave birth to you, raised you, and for what? So you could steal my destiny? Your destiny, Dante said, his voice dropping to a lethal purr, was to be tried for attempted murder, treason, and conspiracy against the crown. Your destiny was to spend the rest of your miserable existence in the deepest dungeon I possess. And that destiny, Lady Morgana, has just been fulfilled. He nodded to his guards, who surged forward. Morgana tried to run, tried to fight, but she was no match for trained warriors. They dragged her toward the doors as she screamed and cursed, promising revenge, swearing she had been wronged. Cassandra watched her mother being taken away, and felt something inside her finally break free. Not sorrow, not grief, relief. The poison had been cut out. The wound could finally heal. Dante was at her side in an instant, his hand finding hers. Are you all right? He asked softly, his public face slipping to reveal the concern beneath. Cassandra turned to him, her eyes bright with tears that were not entirely sad. I am free, she said. For the first time in my life, I am truly free. Then let us be free together, Dante said, and led her the rest of the way to the altar. The ceremony resumed, but it was no longer just a wedding. It was a triumph. A victory over betrayal and darkness, and the cruelty that could exist even in the hearts of those who should love us most. When the priest asked if there were any who would object to this union, the hall remained silent, and Cassandra felt the weight of that silence like a benediction. Dante's vows were simple and devastating. I pledge to you my strength, my protection, my loyalty, and my love. I will be your shelter in every storm, your sword against every threat, and your companion through every day and night until the stars themselves burn out. You are my mate, my queen, and my heart, and I am yours, completely and forever. Cassandra's vows came from a place she had not known existed until Dante had uncovered it. I pledge to you my trust, my courage, my devotion, and my love. I will stand beside you as your equal and your partner. I will be your peace when the world demands your fierceness, and your strength when you need rest. You found me when I was lost and broken, and you taught me that love is not a weakness, but the greatest power of all. I am yours, as you are mine, bound by something deeper than words or vows, bound by fate itself. When they kissed, sealing the bond, power rippled through the hall. Those with the sight to see it witnessed the connection between king and queen flare to life, a golden cord of energy that wrapped around them both, binding them in a way that transcended the physical. The pack bond settled over them like a blessing, every wolf in the kingdom feeling the rightness of this union in their bones. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days and 3 nights. Music and dancing filled the castle, feasting and revelry spilling out into the courtyards and gardens. Cassandra danced with her new husband, with members of the court, with common folk who had been invited to celebrate their queen. She laughed freely, her joy infectious, and Dante watched her with eyes that held a contentment he had never expected to find. On their wedding night, alone finally in chambers that would now belong to both of them, Dante carried Cassandra to the balcony that overlooked the mountains. The full moon hung overhead, blessing them with its silver light. I want to show you something, Dante said, setting her gently on her feet. Do you trust me? With everything I am, Cassandra replied without hesitation. Dante's form began to shift, the change rippling through him like water. His wolf emerged, massive and midnight black, with eyes of molten gold that looked at her with Dante's soul behind them. He was beautiful in this form, all lethal grace and primal power. Cassandra reached out, her hand tangling in his fur, and felt something answer in her own blood. The wolf in Dante called to the wolf in her, the dormant heritage she had never known she possessed. And for the first time, guided by instinct and love, Cassandra allowed her own transformation to begin. It should have been painful, this first shift, but with Dante's presence steadying her, it felt natural. Her body reformed, smaller than his but no less powerful, her fur white as fresh snow, her eyes bright silver. She was beautiful, this wolf that had always lived inside her, just waiting for the right moment, the right person, to draw it forth. They ran together that night, two wolves racing through the forest under the moon, their howls intertwining in a song of joy and freedom and love that would echo through the mountains for years to come. They were alpha and mate, king and queen, two souls that had found each other across all the obstacles the world had tried to place between them. And when they finally returned to human form, tangled together in silk sheets as dawn painted the sky in shades of rose and gold, Cassandra traced the lines of Dante's face with gentle fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Dante asked, catching her hand and pressing a kiss to her palm. "For not giving up on me. For finding me in the dark. For showing me that love is not something to fear, but something to fight for." Dante pulled her closer, his arms a haven she would always return to. "You saved me as much as I saved you," he said. "Before you, I was a king but not a man, a ruler but not alive. You taught me that strength is not just in conquest but in connection, that power is not just in dominance but in devotion. You made me whole." They held each other as the sun rose, two beings who had been broken and betrayed and cast aside, who had found in each other not just healing, but transformation. The bond between them would grow stronger with each passing year, a love that was both gentle and fierce, tender and unbreakable. In the dungeons far below, Lady Morgana heard the howls of celebration and knew that she had lost everything. Her daughter had not just survived, but thrived, had claimed the throne Morgana had coveted, had found love in the arms of a king who looked at her as if she was his entire world. The irony was not lost on her, that in trying to destroy Cassandra, she had only ensured her daughter's ascension. The years that followed were marked by prosperity and peace. Cassandra proved to be a queen, unlike any the kingdom had known, compassionate but firm, gentle but unafraid to make hard decisions. She established healers' guilds, reformed the treatment of the lower classes, opened the castle's libraries to any who wished to learn. And Dante, fierce and uncompromising with the world, remained devoted to her above all else. They had children eventually, 3 of them, each inheriting their parents' strength and their mother's kind heart. The castle that had once echoed with loneliness filled with laughter and life, and the pack that had been held together only by fear and power learned what it meant to be led by love. On nights when the moon was full, Dante and Cassandra would still run together, 2 wolves racing through the forest, their joy and freedom a testament to survival and choice, and the bonds that cannot be broken by betrayal or time or death. They had been thrown into darkness, both of them, in different ways, and they had clawed their way back to the light together. And in the end, that was the story they left behind. Not one of tragedy, though tragedy had touched them both. Not one of revenge, though justice had been served, but one of transformation, of choosing love even when fear seemed safer, of building something beautiful from the ashes of what had tried to destroy them. Cassandra Sunbreaker, who had been thrown from a ravine by the woman who should have protected her, who had lost everything only to find herself, stood on the balcony of her castle, her hand in her husband's, her children sleeping safely nearby, and felt something she had never experienced before. That night Dante had found her broken in the darkness. She felt complete. And Dante Redclaw, the Alpha King who had been a weapon and a ruler and a force of nature, who had thought he needed nothing and no one, looked at his mate and felt the same. In finding her, he had found himself. In saving her, he had been saved. The moon rose overhead, painting everything in silver and shadow, and the castle was quiet except for the sound of 2 heartbeats, synchronized, eternal, bound by something that had awakened in the darkest moment and blazed into something that would light their way forever. The story of the girl thrown from a ravine and the king who found her would be told for generations, passed down as legend and truth intertwined. But for Cassandra and Dante, it was simply their beginning, the start of a love that had survived death and betrayal and loss, a love that had taught them both that sometimes the broken pieces, when put back together, create something stronger and more beautiful than what had been before. And every night, when they held each other close, they remembered the darkness not with fear, but with gratitude. Because without that darkness, they might never have learned to appreciate the light. Without that fall, Cassandra might never have learned to fly. Without that loss, they might never have found what it meant to truly be found. The bond had awakened inside the Alpha King, called forth by a girl in a red dress with white hair and a heart that refused to break even when the world tried to shatter it. And in awakening, it had saved them both, transformed them both, made them both into something more than they had been alone. Love had found them in the ravine, in the darkness, in the place where hope went to die. And love, fierce and patient and unbreakable, had carried them home. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this beautiful love story. Let us know what you thought of this tale full of emotions and surprises. Tell us your name, where you're watching from, and rate this story from 0 to 10 if it touched your heart. And if you enjoyed the plot, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the amazing new stories coming soon. See you next time.